The DraftKings show on Pub Sports Radio is over. The Dana White Contender Series is over. You know what that means. That means it's time for the sensual prelude to the Balls Deep breakdown. That means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, all decked out for you in my finery, my smoking jacket, Uncle Weezy, here as always with the one that you guys know as the person who is right 52% of the time, Mr. Smooth Jimmy Apollo on the screen here, joining me as he always does. And guess what? You guys are joining me too. There is everybody in the chat waiting to talk to you guys, waiting to hang out with your Uncle Weezy on Tuesday night and go over all 15 fights on the UFC Vegas 37 card that's coming up this Saturday. First in the chat, my guy Chris Kalanzis. What's good, Chris? Good to see you, my man. We got Daz Files in the room saying Dana White Contender Series was good. Looking forward to this breakdown. Yeah, man. I did not get to watch all of Dana White Contender Series. I had to get ready for you guys tonight. Had to finish brushing up on the rest of the stats for these fights. But I am ready to go tonight. And I can't wait to share these stats with you guys on all 15 fights for this card. Daz Files saying we got less than 500 subs needed for the money sign, 6 likes, 3 waiting, be in the money for Xmas easily. I hope so, man. I've got over 500 of you guys have subscribed to my channel, and I can't believe how fast the channel has grown. I have you guys to thank for that. So I appreciate each and every one of you that hangs out here on Tuesday night for Just the Tip live with your Uncle Weezy. Can't wait to get into the stats with you guys. I appreciate all you guys that hang out. And then that's me just kind of giving a little love to the chat there. And we got Andretti saying good night, finishing with Almeida, UK here. Yes, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us all the way from the UK. I know it's late or actually early there at this point. And we got Val Duar saying, I need Weezy. Where is Daddy Weezy? Dude, he's right here. He's right here, ready to give you guys the tip for 15 fights. We got Robbie in the room. What's going on, Robbie? Good to see you, my man. And we got Daz Files back again. And then we got Headley One saying, I bet 100 units on Firo for next week at minus 250. Anyone know how to get to the tunnels under Vegas just in case I need a place to stay? Dude, I hope you're kidding about betting 100 units. That means that is your entire bankroll. We don't do that. It's really bad bankroll management. But on the other side of that, you're also talking about one of my favorite fighters right now, Manon Fiorot. She's so good. She is so good. Very hyped prospect. I think she's going to be at or near the top of the women's flyweight division in the very near future. Myra Bueno Silva is no joke, though. She is very tough. And Manon's got her work cut out for her. I think this is even going to be tougher than the Moroz fight would have been for her. But I am very high on Manon Fiorot. I wish you luck. Yeah, we can find those tunnels underneath Vegas. I'm sure there's some people in here that have had to sleep there a night or two. We're all degenerate gamblers, and every once in a while, things don't work out the way that we think they will. But I'll tell you something, man. I'll be rooting for you there because I'll probably have a couple units on Manon myself. I think she's a fantastic mixed martial artist. I think the arrow is pointing straight up for her, and I think she probably does get the job done there. And we got Grayson saying hashtag super necessary. I appreciate you hanging out, Grayson. We got to get into the numbers for all these fights. We got my man DFS by the numbers in the room. Thanks for joining us, Brady. And we got Val saying thanks for the tip, Daddy Weezy. Hey, man, this is what we do here. So I've got some stats for you guys. Let's get into them here, and let's figure out what we got for the very first fight. And it's Emily Whitmire versus Hannah Goldy. What are we going to do with this one, man? All right, let me get a sip of water here. I also have my Paloma here. I've got a lovely beverage. It's late night. I've earned it. I've been working hard. I got the stats. I got over 100 data points for each fighter here, and there are 30 fighters on this card. So Let me just get a sip of this tequila here with a little bit of the grapefruit soda to kind of wet my whistle. Get ready to break down these fights with you guys. Grayson in the chat saying, banger. You got that right, man. Emily Whitmire versus Hannah Goldy, a banger of a fight to take a shitter break. But anyway, all right. So Whitmire's got an experience advantage. You guys, one fight, 2 fights in the UFC. You know, neither one of these girls is finishers. Emily Whitmire only 1 out of her 4 wins inside the distance. Hannah Goldy, 1 of her 5 wins inside the distance. That's 2 of 9 combined wins coming inside the distance. But Emily Whitmire has been finished in all 4 of her losses, all of them by submission. Evidently, Hannah Goldy just got her purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not exactly sure what that means because we haven't seen much of her on the ground yet. She's 2 for 6 on takedowns. She's been taken down 2 of 6 times, but there's not much in the way of control time because unfortunately her first her Contender Series fight didn't have control time data available. So I can't really help you out much, you guys. Emily Whitmire has fought the tougher strength of schedule. If we look at the MMA math, both of these ladies have fought Jillian Robertson. They've both lost to her. Whitmire lost by submission. Hannah Goldy went all 3 rounds with her. But, you know, Whitmire's had 5 UFC fights. Goldy's had 3. This is not a situation where Hannah Goldy is going to be outmatched in the reach like she has been in her last couple of fights, particularly against Miranda Granger and Diana Belbita. You know, so hopefully she'll be able to close the distance here on the feet. Hannah Goldy lands 6.4 significant strikes a minute, only absorbing 5.2. So she's got a positive significant strike differential. While for Whitmire, it's 3.32 landed, but 3.77 absorbed. And we see a pitiful striking accuracy of 30.96%. That puts Emily Whitmire in the category of she couldn't hit water if she fell out of a boat. So, you know, I think if this fight stays standing, you're going to see Hannah Goldy have an advantage. If she can stuff the takedowns of Emily Whitmire, I think she'll also have an advantage. If she can keep Whitmire from controlling her on the ground, the longer this fight stays standing, I think Goldy will probably have the slightly better boxing here, the slightly more accurate punches, as she has a 47% striking accuracy compared to 31 for Whitmire. Both of these ladies' striking defense is north of 50%, which is good. So, you know, I'm going to pick Goldy. I'm thinking she might be able to keep this fight standing. However, I'm not betting this fight. And if I were to suggest a bet for this fight, though, I would just say maybe bet the fight goes to decision. But I'll tell you something, I'm not loving that either because Whitmire, this is a pretty close to a 50-50 fight here, and Whitmire has been finished in all of her losses. So there are no bets that feel safe to me here. I'll pick Goldy. I'll say by decision, but I'm not betting it for sure. Let's move on to the next one. Not spend too much time this time on this one. We're going to go to Gustavo Lopez versus Heili Alanteng. Very interesting fight here. Very closely lined fight here. Let me bring up my best, or no, I've got this up on FanDuel. So let's just find these fights. Lopez, Alanteng. We got Alanteng as a slight favorite here at minus 134. Alanteng is 3 years younger. Lopez will have a 1-inch reach advantage, so there's really not much to speak of there in the tail of the tape. If we look at pro experience, we're going to see Alanteng slightly more experienced, about 70 more minutes in the cage, 5 more professional fights. Both of these guys have 3 UFC fights, so only a slight experience advantage for Alanteng. Gustavo Lopez, you guys, though, he's a very good finisher. We're talking about a 92% finish rate for Gustavo Lopez. 11 out of 12 of his wins have come inside the distance, and he has been knocked out in 3 of his 6 losses. So, yeah, that's 14 out of his 18 fights have finished inside the distance. You know, it's about 75 to 80% there. While for Alanteng, he's been finished in 4 out of his 8 losses, but he's only finished 7 of his 14 wins. So not the kind of finishing percentage that we're used to seeing out of UFC fighters, especially when we talk about the fact that before Alanteng got to the UFC, he was not fighting the highest level of competition. And we'll take a look at that briefly here. But since we do have a robust amount of data for both of these guys, we've got 3 UFC fights for each of them. Let's look at the striking numbers here. We see that both of these guys are getting doubled up in terms of their opponents are landing twice as many significant strikes as them per minute. Lopez lands 2.24 and absorbs 4.65. Alanteng lands 2.87 and absorbs 5.82. Alanteng's got better striking defense at almost 58% compared to 51% for Lopez. But Alanteng couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat either. He's got 33% striking accuracy. Neither one of these guys has landed a knockdown in the UFC, but Gustavo Lopez has been knocked down twice. Both knockdowns came at the hands of Adrian Yanez. We know how good of a boxer Yanez is, so we can't really hold that against him too much. But from what I've seen of the striking, if we're just going to talk technical stuff here, Lopez is the better boxer. Alanteng is a guy who throws everything into every strike. He's lower volume, I would say, than Lopez will be, even though we see Lopez only attempting 5.36 significant strikes a minute and Alanteng attempting 8.69. We have to keep in mind one of Lopez's 3 fights was against Merab Dvalishvili, who took him down 13 times and attempted 18 takedowns. So basically, Gustavo Lopez barely landed any significant strikes in 15 minutes. So those numbers are a little bit skewed there. However, from what I'm seeing on tape, Lopez is going to be the better boxer here. He's got power in both hands. Alanteng kind of throws everything into every punch. So he's a little bit slower. He's a little more predictable. He's a little bit easier to get out of the way of his stuff. But if we go to the grappling here, we see that Alanteng, he did try out for the Chinese wrestling team. He's got a great wrestling pedigree, and he does use it in his fights. We see that in his 3 UFC fights, he's attempted 20 takedowns. He's gotten 7 of them for a 35% takedown accuracy, and he's out-controlling his opponents 13% to 0.22%. He's also showing 100% takedown defense. Gustavo Lopez, 50% on his takedown attempts, only 4 takedown attempts, though, in 3 fights in comparison to 20 takedown attempts for Alanteng. So if there's one of the guys that's more likely to go to the wrestling, it's probably going to be Alanteng here. And the problem is that Gustavo Lopez's numbers look terrible here. 13 of 18 takedowns against 27.78% takedown defense. This all happened in the Merab Dvalishvili fight. So other than that, his opponents haven't taken him down at all. They haven't even shot a takedown against him. But Alanteng, being as good of a wrestler as he is, as willing of a wrestler as he is, you can count on, if he doesn't like how it's going on the feet, that he will probably try to get this fight to the ground. Gustavo Lopez, a talented submission grappler in his own right, as he has 6 of his 12 pro wins have come inside the distance by submission, and 5 of his 12 wins coming inside the distance by knockout. He can hurt you in a number of different ways. And let's just go over to the Tapology page here. I want to give you guys as much information about this fight because I think it's a really interesting matchup. If we look at Lopez's losses in the strength of schedule, we're looking Adrian Yanez, Merab Dvalishvili, Jose Alde, who we just saw fight on the Contender Series, Andre Ewell, John Castaneda, and then Casey White back in 2013. So we know that all 5 losses are to guys who have at least fought at the UFC level or Contender Series level. If we go to Alanteng, we will see losses to Casey Kenny, Kai Asakura from the Japanese promotion, the old Pride, whatever it is now. I keep forgetting. The one where they'll let you wear shoes if you want to. But then the other losses come into not nearly as high level of competition. Namjin Jo, Altinbek Bajamov, Zhikang Zhao, and Dennis Purich. These guys' records 4-3, 2-0, 0-0, and 9-6. Now, this all happened before 2015 and before. And he's also got a loss to Bashanku Damian Purev. That's a mouthful. But and then let's also talk about the wins here. Tom Nee, 1-0. Chao Huang, 1-1. Stephen Langdown, 2-1. Jesse Raffles, 8-5. Emil Abasov, 4-6. Min-Suk Kwan, 1-0. Kana Hyatt, 14-15. Fumiya Sasaki, 8-12-2. Mu Chong Choi, 3-2. Ik Hwan Jang, 6-1. Jong Hyung Kwak, 5-4. And then Batgarel and Benoit in the UFC. So not until he got to the UFC do we even see him get a signature win. Two very impressive wins, though, against Batgarel. The one against Batgarel in particular, Batgarel's really tough. And then the Benoit win was a very, very close fight. And then he just got outboxed by Casey Kenny. So I think, that Alanteng can win a decision here, and I kind of see why he's the favorite, because I think he'll be able to use his wrestling, not unlike Dvalishvili did, to win minutes and bank rounds here. However, I think the more explosive fighter is going to be Gustavo Lopez. I think that as long as this fight stays standing, he should be able to get the better of Alanteng. And Alanteng's going to have to be careful not to get subbed, because Gustavo Lopez is a very talented submission grappler. I've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on this fight, but I think that Gustavo Lopez has more ways to win here. So I'm going to pick the underdog in Gustavo Lopez. But this is a very close fight, and I easily think that Heili Alanteng could win a very close decision here by going to his wrestling, accumulating some control time, landing some ground and pound, and then keeping it close on the feet. So very close fight to call, very difficult fight to bet, in my opinion. I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole, but the pick is actually going to be Gustavo Lopez. But like I say, I keep going back and forth on this one. The next fight is a fight that I did in a balls deep breakdown for. And, let me just address the chat here real quick. I see my guy Monk in the room. Good to see you. One of my favorite statisticians in the MMA community. Good to see you here. And then also my guy B, bringing up some really sad news here. Rest in peace, Norm Macdonald, one of the great funny men of my generation growing up. I remember Norm when he was on Saturday Night Live. He will be missed. I've most recently enjoyed Norm's work as Pigeon on Mike Tyson Mysteries, one of my favorite cartoons that there is. That is a great show if you haven't seen it yet. Rest in power, Norm Macdonald. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, B. You will be missed. But let's get back. Let's get back to the fights here, because that's what we're here to talk about, you guys. And now we've got Impa Kasanganay versus Carlston Harris. I did a balls deep breakdown on this fight yesterday, so I'm going to keep this pretty short and sweet. If you want additional information about this fight, I went balls deep on this one. It's a great stylistic matchup. I believe that Carlston Harris's style of grappling, heavy style, going for takedowns, chain wrestling, this is the kind of style that Impa Kasanganay has not seen yet in his UFC career or prior to that. If we look at Kasanganay's competition prior to the UFC and in the UFC, we're not going to see anybody like Harris. And what what I mean by that is that we're not going to see anybody who grapples as consistently and as effectively as Carlston Harris does. Sasha Palatnikov, definitely not known for his grappling. You're not known for your grappling when a guy like Impa Kasanganay, who has been training MMA for less than 3 years, can get a no-hooks rear naked choke on you. Joaquin Buckley, not known for his grappling. Maki Pitolo, not known for his grappling. Anthony Adams, not known for his grappling. Kalen Hill, not known for his grappling. Devorius Tubbs, Roger Pratcher, John Lewis, Dalen Wilson, and Garrett Fosdyke might be known for their grappling, but I don't know if they are, so I'm just going to say that they're not. Carlston Harris has got some really good wins over some credited guys. He's got wins over Wellington Turman and Michelle Pereira prior to him getting to the UFC. Also a win over an 18-2 Saigid Izgakmaev, who's a stud, probably going to be in the UFC fairly soon. I'm picking Carlston Harris. I got one unit on him at plus 120 a little over a week ago. I think Harris will go to his grappling early and often and won't allow Kasanganay to keep the fight standing, where I think Kasanganay will actually have the advantage standing. Harris is unorthodox with his striking, but he's very unusual and he's very hard to time. And since you always have to worry about the threat of the takedown with him, he can sometimes surprise you with his striking in his own right. So go to the Balls Deep breakdown if you want a really in-depth breakdown of this fight. But I'm picking Carlston Harris. I got him at plus 120 last Sunday, like Mark Schillingberg did in the chat right there. Like he's saying, so I'm picking Harris here, and I think that Harris's defensive ability to just not, frustrate his opponents will be enough for him to get the W here. But let's move on to Erin Blanchfield versus Sarah Too Sweet Alpar. Erin Blanchfield is going to be making her UFC debut in this fight. She had a prior fight canceled where her opponent pulled out after she stepped in on short notice. Blanchfield was supposed to fight Norma Dumont. Wow. Norma Dumont's huge. And then Pearl Gonzalez before that was also canceled back in 2020. So we haven't seen Erin fight since the middle of 2020. So it's been over a year since she's been in the cage. But for Sarah Alpar, we're going to see that it's been a minute for her as well. She got her ass shaved by Jessica Rose Clark, and that was brutal. That was also back in 2020. So she will have been out of the cage almost exactly 1 year, as her last fight was September 19th, 2020. She took a brutal beating at the hands of Jessica Rose Clark. So Alpar brings a very grappling heavy style, very wrestling heavy style. She uses her wrestling to get it to the ground and then uses her ground and pound and top control in order to bank rounds and win fights that way. If we look at the experience numbers, Sarah Alpar is going to be twice as experienced as Erin Blanchfield. 14 fights compared to 7, over 3 times as many cage minutes as 207 compared to 65 and a half. And we see a 10-year career for Sarah in comparison to about just under a 4-year career for Erin. We see a 50% finish rate for Erin Blanchfield, a 44% finish rate for Sarah Alpar. Alpar, though, has been finished in 3 of her 5 losses, 2 by sub, 1 by knockout. And Erin Blanchfield has never been finished. Now, I don't have any striking statistics or grappling statistics for Blanchfield because she's making her debut. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just talk about Sarah Alpar's fight against Jessica Rose Clark. This was a fight where she was just going to her wrestling early and often. She wasn't exactly having success getting the fight to the ground, but she kind of held Jessica Rose Clark up against the cage for the first round. Very close first round. I don't know who to score it for. But after Sarah started to slow down due to the fact that she was grappling so much, trying to get so many takedowns, using so much muscle to try to drag the fight to the ground, what we saw is she slowed down in the second. And then when she shot in on the takedowns, Rose Clark was stopping those takedowns, getting top positions, and then just beating her up. And man, it got ugly in the third round. She was fucking her up in a bad way. So Sarah is... this is a very interesting fight in the fact it reminds me a little bit, because Blanchfield is so good with her grappling. It reminds me a little bit of Bartosz Fabinski against Andre Muniz, in that Fabinski likes to go to his wrestling, but when you do that against a guy like Muniz, you're playing right into what they're best at. And Erin Blanchfield is a fantastic grappler, very well pedigreed Brazilian jiu-jitsu player. And she's very young. She's only 22 years old right now. And she's been fighting killers before she even got to the UFC. She's got some great wins on her resume already. A win over Kay Hansen, a win over Victoria Leonardo, a 3-round decision that she split decision that she lost to Tracy Cortez. And if you go back and watch that fight, I actually scored it for Blanchfield. So you just see that there's a much better, I mean, like her wins against Kay Hansen, Gabriella Golfin, Victoria Leonardo, and Brogan Walker Sanchez are pretty much better than any win that Sarah Alpar has had in her entire career. If we look at her wins, Shanna Young and Jocelyn Edwards, definitely the best wins there. But that was a split decision against Edwards that could have went either way. Trust me on that. And then the Pamela Boveda Aguirre win. And then we got Jamie Jones, Susie Watson, a Jocelyn Jones-Lieberger win back in 2013. And then before that, Lovato, Torres, and Reed. So, I just think that Sarah Alpar, her wrestling heavy style isn't going to do her any favors here. And we've seen Blanchfield's striking start to get a little bit better. For a girl who's known almost strictly for her Brazilian jiu-jitsu, she knocked Victoria Leonardo out with a head kick. And then in the Brogan Walker Sanchez fight, she had a 1-2 that came right down the pipe that knocked Sanchez on her ass, wound up getting very close to finishing that fight on the ground as a result of that knockdown. She's very well-rounded. I think Erin Blanchfield is going to win this fight however she wants to. This is going to be a pretty one-sided fight here, and I'm picking Erin Blanchfield, and I think she's going to get it done inside the distance here because I just don't see Alpar's style giving Blanchfield problems anywhere. The pick is Blanchfield however she wants it, probably inside the distance. Let's move on to the next one. This is another one I don't want to overthink too much, but we will get into the numbers here. Montel Jackson's a huge favorite, you guys, and there are several reasons for that. Let's start with the tail of the tape. Montel Jackson is 5 inches taller and has an 8-inch reach advantage, and he's a southpaw. And we can't talk about the tail of the tape without talking about Montel Jackson's freak hands. He's got freak hands. He's got hands that are bigger than pretty much every heavyweight in the division. So when he's got a grip that when he does get you up against the cage, he can absolutely, immobilize both your arms just by getting a grip on your wrist. So Montel Jackson is a very unique challenge for any bantamweight. This is a very stacked division full of studs. And Montel Jackson is a very, very difficult out for anybody. JP Bays is taking this fight on short notice. It was supposed to be Dana Batgarel fighting Bays here. So Bays, I think, took this fight Sunday of last week. So I think he's got about 13 days notice to get ready for this fight. And he's going to be getting ready for a guy in Montel Jackson who's got a 70% finish rate, 60% finish rate in the UFC, who's never been finished, and who's landing 3.77 significant strikes a minute with an over 2% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. He's only absorbing 1.5 significant strikes a minute. He's never been knocked down. And then we see JP Bays. He's been knocked down by Bruno Silva. He's getting knocked down on almost 5% of the significant strikes landed against him. This is not good, you guys. These are very bad numbers that we just saw in the Bays debut here against Bruno Silva down a weight class. Now he's coming up a weight class, fighting a guy that's much bigger than him, is a fantastic wrestler. Look at Jackson's grappling numbers, you guys. He's 21 of 27 on his takedown attempts. That's almost a 78% takedown accuracy. He's averaging 4.15 takedowns for 15 minutes, out-controlling his opponents 30% to 21%. And that was after Brett Johns, basically cage fucked him and grapple fucked him for an entire fight. So you throw out the Brett Johns fight, and it's even more one-sided. And JP Bays is not Brett Johns. JP Bays is a guy that we have to worry about his conditioning. So when you talk about a guy who thrives with a wrestling heavy style, and then you combine the fact that he's taken the fight on short notice and has shown poor conditioning in the past, everything is lining up for an ass shaving here for Montel Jackson. So we don't want to overthink it too much, but we can't get too excited about Montel Jackson's wins. The average guy that he's beating has a 2 and 1.8 record. So We'd like to see him start to get some wins against some higher rated competition here, but JP Buys isn't quite that. This is exactly the kind of fighter that Montel Jackson has been beating handily, and I think he's going to get it done here. JP Buys has lost all 3 of his losses, have come inside the distance. So if you're afraid to bet Montel Jackson at that massive wide money line, I would suggest betting him inside the distance to get much better pricing there. Let's take a look and see what that is while we're at it. So we've got Montel Jackson. By the way, Blanchfield was minus 325 favorite over Alpar here at 250. Carlston Harris, a minus 102 underdog to Kasanganay at minus 120. And then we see that Montel Jackson here, minus 590. JP Buys on the comeback, plus 410. And we don't have any props on this for some reason. So I was going to suggest we take a look at the Jackson inside the distance prop. Let's see if Best Fight odds has it. Because I would be interested to know what that is sitting at, because that would be a good way to gain some value here, especially with the conditioning problems that we've seen from Buys, and the fact that he's taken the fight on short notice, and the fact that this is pretty one-sided anyway. Montel Jackson inside the distance, looking about minus 175 to as good as minus 140. So much better than, minus 550 if you're still looking to win, bet Jackson here. But let's move on to the next fight here. We've got a short notice replacement in Cameron Van Camp stepping in for the venerable Jim Miller, the KG veteran. So now we've got Cameron Van Camp coming in here on less than 2 weeks' notice against Nikolas Motta, who's making his official UFC debut after fighting on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, and then also when he was very young, when he was like 21 years old, and then also having a contender series win over Joe Lowry last year. Nick Motta is going to be making his official UFC debut here. Let's look at the tail of the tape. We see Cam Van Camp 6'1" to Nick Motta's 5'9". I didn't have stats yet on Van Camp. Let's see if UFC has updated it. UFC not giving us a reach for Van Camp, but they're calling him a switch stance fighter, which I did see him switching stances in the Gaudreau fight. So, yeah, I'll just do SWH there. So that's in there. All right. So Cameron Van Camp, the slightly more experienced mixed martial artist here, 22 professional fights compared to 15 for Motta. We've got more time in the cage at 170 minutes for Van Camp compared to about 115 for Motta. And we've got Motta, though, at 28 years old, has been a pro for over 9 years. So Nick Motta started fighting at the tender young age of 19, and he was already on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, fighting guys like Glyco Franca back when he was 21 years old. So even though Nick Motta is only 28, he's very experienced for his age. And Cameron Van Camp, even more experienced at the age of 28, he started his mixed martial arts career around the age of 20. So both of these guys are good finishers. We got Motta finishing 67% of the time. That would be 8 of 12 of his pro wins have come inside the distance by knockout. If he doesn't knock you out, though, it's going to decision. And Nick Motta has been finished in all 3 of his losses. So 1 by submission, 2 by knockout. While we see Cameron Van Camp has got an 87% finish rate in his 15 wins. So that would be 13 out of his 15 wins have come inside the distance. 9 by submission, 4 by knockout. And then he has been subbed once and knocked out once in his 5 losses. So both of these guys have been finished inside the distance, and both of these guys have shown a propensity to finish their opponents. Both of these guys have been fighting largely regional scene competition lately. So this is a pretty good matchup. We do see Motta as a big favorite because, he was training to fight Miller here. Miller probably would have been a much tougher test. Nick Motta, since we can't really look much at the stats here, ton of power in this guy's hands. In his fight against Cesar Balmaceda, he knocked this dude out so bad that he didn't wake up for about 3 minutes, and he had to be taken out of the cage on a stretcher and a neck brace. Dude, if Nick Motta connects, you're going down, and there are no exceptions to that. This guy just hits extremely hard. While Van Camp is pretty well-rounded. You see him going to his grappling a lot. He does have great front chokes. His last 2 wins have come by Darce choke. If it goes to the ground, he can get your back. He's a pretty slick grappler. And he uses his length pretty well on the feet as well. He's not a bad striker. The thing that bothers me about what I saw from Van Camp, and it wasn't the stuff that I was seeing on tape so much as it was, I don't know where the hell this guy's been fighting. If you look at these organizations that he's been fighting in, I've never heard of any of them. B2 Fighting Series, SHP, Chosen Few FC. When I saw CFFC, I thought, oh, well, he fought CFFC, but not Cage Fury. He's fighting in Chosen Few FC, United Combat League, Shamrock FC, Hard Rock MMA, Coliseum Combat, Hard Rock MMA, HFC, Midwest Fight Series. So, there's not... he's got a loss against Austin Hubbard. He's got a no contest against Thomas Gifford. I don't know if he won or lost that. He's got a loss against Bobby Volker, a win against UFC veteran Dan Stitkin, where I know that Stitkin was more of a striker, but Stitkin was trying to wrestle that entire fight. A win against Quentin Parks Jr., so he's been around. He's fought some names, and he's reasonably well-rounded. And he's taken it on short notice against a guy like Motta, who's a very good prospect. But to be respectful to him, he's kind of one-dimensional. He's a power puncher. This line does seem a little bit wide here, you guys. Van Camp is bigger. He's more experienced, and he's more well-rounded. But you can get him here at a pretty good price. Let me see that. Yeah, he's Nick Motta's minus 280, and Cameron Van Camp is plus 220. So yeah, there's some pretty good odds here on Van Camp, and it's not, he's taking the fight on about a week's notice. So that's the biggest thing here. And you say that Motta has that signature win against Joe Selecki before they were in the UFC. I didn't even see that. I missed the fact that Motta beat Joe Selecki. He must have knocked him out. Because no way he grappled with Joe Selecki and survived. Let's see here. Joe Selecki, knockout, 108 round 3. Yeah. Well, if this guy's winning, it's usually via knockout or decision. So the Joe Lowry fight, you could hit that guy in the head with a hammer and he wouldn't go down. Joe Lowry is incredibly tough, but I thought that fight was going to get stopped a number of different times. Nick Motta's power is different. So, I still think I'm going to pick Nick Motta here by knockout, but at minus 280, I just don't see, I can't lay that kind of juice on a guy who does have some deficiencies in his game. Let's see if we can find some method of victory. What's Nick Motta by knockout? Plus 130. Now, instead of minus 280, I would be willing to bet Nicholas Motta by knockout at plus 130 because this guy hits so hard that I just think a guy on short notice. And there's one other thing we do need to mention here. Cameron Van Camp's last 3 or 4 fights have been at welterweight. He's taken this fight on short notice at lightweight. So we all know when you drain yourself in order to cut weight, too much weight, especially on short notice, your chin can get cracked way easier than it normally would. So the bet here for me, if I were to bet Motta, would be Nick Motta by KO at plus 130. But the money line is a little bit too wide for me here. But still, you guys, the pick is going to be Nick Motta by knockout here. All right, so let's see where we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've only talked about 6 of 15 fights, and we're already 40 minutes in. So we gotta keep it moving along here, you guys. But I appreciate all of you guys. I think there's 24 of you guys hanging out in here with your Uncle Weezy. I appreciate each and every one of you. We're going to get through all 15 of these fights, and after that, we're going to get to Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, and then I'm going to let you guys go to bed this evening. But next, we got Dakota Bush against Rong Zhu. And this is another interesting one. This is one I was looking into right before we went on the air here. Now, Dakota Bush is 27 years old, and Rong Zhu is only 21 years old. Bush will have a 2-inch reach advantage here. Rong Zhu is the more experienced fighter, even though he's 6 years younger here. This guy's 21 years old, but he has 21 professional fights. He's got a 5.5-year career, which means that he's been fighting professionally since the age of 15, you guys. That's crazy. So this guy is incredibly experienced, and in that 5-year career, he's fought 21 fights. So he's fighting a little, about 4 fights per year. So he's been incredibly busy. While Dakota Bush, it's been about 2 fights a year, 11 fights in about 5.5 years. Rong Zhu, more minutes. Both of these guys have 1 UFC fight. If we look at the finish rates for these guys, both of them are pretty impressive here. 75% finish rate for Dakota Bush and an 89% finish rate for Rong Zhu. Rong Zhu has been finished in 3 out of his 4 professional losses, though, while Dakota Bush has never been finished in his 3 professional losses. We don't have much meat on the bone here when it comes to striking and grappling statistics due to the fact that either one of these guys, they both have 1 UFC fight. So we got a very narrow sample size here. Not much to talk about. But Bush is a wrestling background. He's got a lot of power in his kicks and in his punches. Sometimes he will explode with those big techniques striking-wise in order to move in on a takedown. And in the losses that Dakota Bush has suffered, those 3 losses in his career, it's basically the 1 loss to Hubbard. He took that fight on short notice, had a very good first round. I think he even won the first round, but then he gassed out, and he gassed out against the guy in Hubbard who has excellent conditioning. So that didn't work out well for him. I'm willing to give him a pass for gassing out there because, he has shown good conditioning other than that fight, which he took on very short notice. He's not taking this fight on short notice, so I do like him to perform a lot better here, to be able to use that wrestling perhaps and maybe give Rong Zhu some different looks here. And then when it comes to the feet, I saw Rong Zhu waiting to counter a lot. He's got good power, that's for sure. But some of the knockouts that he was getting on the Chinese regional scene, it's hard to know what they really mean. Recently, we saw 4 Chinese fighters come in on the card where Zhang lost to Thug Rose. And we saw all 4 of them lose. All 4 of them are highly touted fighters with a ton of regional scene wins in Lu Ying Feng, in particular, that regional Chinese promotion where a lot of these fighters come from, where Rong Zhu did a lot of his fighting. Hang on a second. Oh, my God. Abu Dhabi, I'm looking at the chat here speaking Greek to me, and I'm of Greek descent, but my Greek is absolutely horrible. But elavre de canis wisiakis. Kala Abu Dhabi. Thank you for hanging out with us. I appreciate you coming in here. This is a good stylistic matchup. 2 good young fighters, both of them explosive. Rong Zhu likes to counter. Dakota Bush will go first. I think we could see Bush go to the striking to hurt him, go to the wrestling to wear him out. I'm liking Dakota Bush to win this fight. It's a fight that I don't have a very good read on. Let's see what the bookies are saying here. Excuse me, I had to mute there. Get a good cough out because my throat starts to get dry after I talk for too long. But we've got Dakota Bush as a -132 favorite here. Rong Zhu on the comeback at +108, and we have no props. So I think Bush can win minutes with his wrestling here potentially. I think that's probably what's going to make the difference. And I do like the fact that Bush can use that wrestling and that submission game that he has in order to potentially bank minutes on the ground if he doesn't like how it's going on the feet. But I think he's going to be the more explosive striker and also the striker that throws more volume here. So for me, the pick is going to be Dakota Bush, and I'm even going to pick him inside the distance because Rong coming a long way all the way from China, and he's been finished in 3 out of his 4 losses. And Dakota Bush is a lot more explosive than Kazula Vargas is, who Rong saw in his debut. Great performance by Rong, especially in the 3rd round, but he lost a close decision there. This is a good young fighter, just like Dakota Harry Bush is. So it's a close fight. I'm going to pick Bush inside the distance to win this one. I'll pick him by knockout, even though Rong has never been knocked out. Dakota Bush hits hard, you guys. So let's move on to the next one, though. And we've got Pannie Kianzad against Raquel Pennington here. So I'll kind of go through and then Abu Dhabi just brought it up in the chat that Bush joined Glory MMA for this camp. I forgot to mention that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a very good camp. Another reason to like him here. Hopefully he'll make really good decisions and mix in his wrestling so that he can win the rounds. So Kianzad Pennington. Pennington, 3 years older. Everything else virtually identical in the measurables. The experience number is actually very much the same here. It's just that Kianzad's fought about a third of her pro career at the UFC level, while for Pennington, it's 2/3. So Pennington has just fought the tougher competition and a higher percentage of her career at the highest level. Neither one of these ladies good finishers. 36% finish rate for Pennington, 20% finish rate for Kianzad. Pennington has been finished in 2 of her 8 pro losses, and Kianzad has been finished in 3 of her 5 pro losses. So Kianzad can be finished. Pennington's super tough. Her last time that she got finished was by Amanda Nunes in the 5th round, and she never gave up. So, it's going to be really difficult for Pannie to get Raquel out of there, and vice versa. In a 3-round fight, we haven't seen either of these ladies get a finish in a very long time. So if we look at the striking stats in the UFC, we're going to see very similar striking accuracy numbers. Neither one of these ladies has landed a knockdown. Pannie has been knocked down once. So we got Pannie landing 5.71 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 4.56. So that's a nice little ratio there. And Pennington lands 3.62 and absorbs 3.2. Both of these ladies have a similar accuracy, although Pennington's striking defense at 63.37, much better than Kianzad's at 54%. So I'll give, even though Kianzad comes from a pure striking background as well, I'll give Pennington a slight striking edge here. When it comes to the grappling, we do see that Raquel Pennington is much more likely to go to the wrestling here. 49 takedown attempts in Pennington's 13 fights, while we only have Kianzad having 7 takedown attempts in 6 fights. So we do see that Pennington's fights do tend to take place in control time positions a lot more. Kianzad's fights taking place there about 31, 32% of the time, while for Pennington, it's 47% of the time. And she's getting controlled as much as she controls her as opponents, while Kianzad is getting out-controlled by about a 3.5 to 1 ratio. Pennington has fought the much better level of competition here, and it's really not even close. And I did not like the look of Pannie Kianzad flat out losing a striking battle to Alexis Davis in her last fight. That's a very, very bad look. Raquel Pennington is a far better striker than Alexis Davis is. So, and I could also see Pennington just has a much higher fight IQ than Alexis Davis does. Alexis Davis is maddening to bet on because when you bet on Alexis Davis, you're betting on her grappling. She's a black belt. She gets great control time, great ground and pound, and she can definitely submit her opponents on the ground. But a lot of times she just seems happy to strike, even when she's at a deficiency. Well, she was happy to strike with Pannie Kianzad for 15 minutes, and I thought she won that fight. So if Pannie can't outstrike Alexis Davis. I don't like her chances against Pennington, but the difference between Pennington and Davis is if Pennington doesn't really like how it's going on the feet, or if Pennington just decides that she feels like winning some minutes, which is something that Alexis Davis doesn't seem concerned with at all, well, then Pennington will go to the grappling. 49 takedown attempts in 13 fights for Pennington, so we know that she'll do it. That's almost 4 takedown attempts per fight, and she's getting them at a 28.57% clip, and she's out-controlling her opponents. So, yeah, it's a very good look there. I think Pennington's going to win this fight. I think she's definitely the more well-rounded mixed martial artist here. I think it's very close on the feet, but Pennington is more experienced, and she has fought the far better and beaten the far better brand of competition. I mean, if we just go to the advanced stats here, we can just take a look at the names on Raquel Pennington's resume here, and you'll get an idea for why I just don't really see a girl like Pannie who can't outstrike Alexis Davis. So we got Roxanne Modafferi, Jessica Andrade, Ashley Evans-Smith, Holly Holm, Jessica Andrade again, Betch Correa, Elizabeth Phillips, Misha Tate, Amanda Nunez, Jermaine Durandamy, Irene Aldana, Holly Holm again, Marion Renault. So, and you got wins over Renault, Aldana, Tate, Phillips, Correa, Andrade, Smitty, and Modafferi. And then if you look at, Pannie, the judges gave her a win over Alexis Davis, but I didn't see it that way. Sijara Eubanks, she stopped the takedowns there, and Sijara Eubanks' striking isn't good. And a win over Beth Correa and a win over Jessica Rose Clark, and then losses to Avila and Chason. So while the losses are to very good competition, a combined record of 8-2, we see that the wins, are against about 500 opponents here, and ones that prefer to grapple and can't really get it there. So, yeah, I'm going to be picking Raquel Pennington here by decision. But let's move on to that next fight, you guys. And that's going to be Tafon Nchukwi against Mike Rodriguez. So let's just get into the numbers here. We got Nchukwi younger, 6 years younger at 26 years old. So he's definitely on the upswing of his career. But Rodriguez, the much bigger dude here, he's the natural light heavyweight, 6'4", 82-inch reach, and he's a southpaw. While Nchukwi's 6 feet tall, maybe, 77-inch reach, orthodox fighter. Mike Rodriguez has 18 fights to Nchukwi's 6. He's been a mixed martial artist for about 5 years longer than Nchukwi, and more than twice as many fights in the UFC as well. So Nchukwi's very new to mixed martial arts, less than a 3-year career. 80% of Nchukwi's wins come by knockout. 100% of Rodriguez's wins have come inside the distance. 82% by knockout, 18% by sub. And we see that Rodriguez has lost 4 of his 6 losses have come inside the distance, 3 of them by submission, 1 of them by knockout. So this is interesting. Both of these guys are good strikers. Mike Rodriguez definitely known more for his striking. His grappling is piss poor. But Nchukwi is not going to be known to be a guy that's going to use grappling. He's probably, less than a 3-year MMA career. There's not much of a ground game that I know of on Nchukwi. He will probably, if he gets on top, you're going to wear you out with ground and pound before he's going to submit you. So let's just look at the UFC numbers in the 3 fights for Nchukwi and the 8 fights for Rodriguez. Nchukwi's landing 6.08 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 4.48, while Rodriguez lands 4.61 and absorbs 3.39. Rodriguez very good striking accuracy at about 60%. While it's 51.5% for Nchukwi. Both of these guys got a ton of power. Nchukwi 0.89% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. Rodriguez 2.13%, and he's averaging 1.47 knockdowns per 15 minutes in comparison to 0.81 for Nchukwi. Rodriguez has been knocked down once in 207 significant strikes absorbed. Mike Rodriguez has got terrible striking defense at only 41%. While it's 51.74% for Nchukwi. we see that Rodriguez's opponents have went to the grappling. Mike Rodriguez in his 8 fights has 1 takedown attempt, but has had 29 takedowns attempted against him. And for Nchukwi, he's had 4 takedown attempts, and he's had 9 takedowns attempted against him. So both of these guys, I think, are going to prefer to keep the fight standing. Rodriguez has not been successful in doing that yet. I mean, 60% of Rodriguez's fights thus far have taken place in control time positions, while for Nchukwi, it's only 20%. So I think we're going to see Rodriguez for the first time in a while actually get the fight that he wants, which is a stand-up battle. And he's going to be 4 inches taller and have a 5-inch reach advantage. He's got 12 more pro fights. He's got just as big of a knockout percentage as Nchukwi, and he's fought the better UFC competition thus far. So, just from what I've seen out of Nchukwi, he looks like a very athletically talented, very strong man who hits hard. But, when he went down to 185, I think I realized, wow, this guy's really slow. And Mike Rodriguez is the guy with the nickname Slow, but Nchukwi is slow. So he has to move back up to 205, where that lack of speed won't be as exploited as much at 205 as it is down there at 185. But, I just think on paper, Rodriguez has got a lot of advantages here over Nchukwi. Nchukwi, very new to the game, very one-dimensional, and Mike Rodriguez is pretty explosive with the striking. Even though we've never seen Nchukwi knocked out, and I'm sure that he's an incredibly tough dude, I'm going to pick Mike Rodriguez to win inside the distance by knockout here. And let's see what the line is on this one. And then we can also take a look at the line for the Pennington fight. So Pennington's a -122 favorite over Kianzad, +100. And then we see Nchukwi here at -130. He's the favorite over Slow Mike at +106. But we don't have any props on this for some reason. FanDuel, time to get it together, man. Get your props out on all the fights, not just on some of them. All right. So, yeah, pick is going to be Rodriguez by knockout there. Let's move on to the next one. How many fights do we have left? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights left. We've made it through 9. That is as good of a time to grab a water here, say what's up to Jack Attack, who's in the chat here, Abu Dhabi, Zor, Monk. Who else? Let me just shout out everybody that's been in here so far. We got Headley one in the room, Mark Schillingberg, Super Fights, Daz Files. It's good to see all you guys hanging out. This is awesome. I love it when you guys hang out with me. We got 27 of you in here live, breaking it down with your Uncle Weezy. We're getting there. We're almost done. Man, I needed that water. All right. Thank you for allowing me a little break here. Let's get back at it. Let's see. Buckley Arroyo. So, God, I hate this fight. 2 extremely powerful strikers that are fairly one-dimensional, very muscular. Look for the knockout. Arroyo actually has got an 88% finish rate, 44% by knockout, 44% by sub, while Buckley has got a 75% knockout finish rate. 9 out of his 12 wins coming by way of knockout. He's never subbed anybody, and he's also been knocked out in 3 of his 4 losses, while Arroyo has been subbed in 2 of his 4 losses. So if we add up the losses here, 5 of 8 have come inside the distance. And then if we look at the finish rates on, we got an 88% and a 75%. So that would be 8 of 9 and 9 of 12 makes 17 of 21. So almost an 80% finish rate on the win side here, and over a 60% finish rate on the loss side. So this is a great spot for a fight doesn't go to decision bet, because both of these guys do have a ton of power, and they've got some holes in their game as well. Both of these guys have got knockdowns per 15 minutes. Joaquin Buckley landing 1.79 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Antonio Arroyo landing 0.28 knockdowns per 15 minutes. The striking accuracy on Arroyo is 70%, but he's only throwing 4.37 significant strikes a minute. So while this fight stays standing, I think we're going to have to count on Antonio Arroyo landing a big strike here in order to be relevant, because Joaquin Buckley has been very busy, throwing 12.6 significant strike attempts per minute. Very poor striking accuracy at 36% in comparison to the 70% for Arroyo. But Arroyo is not showing great defensive striking at 44.5%. And Buckley just over 50%. But Buckley's been knocked down just as much as he's knocking down his opponents. So you could easily see either of these guys landing a big power strike here. This fight is probably going to end inside the distance, and I like its odds to do so. Buckley, 6 takedown attempts in 4 fights. He's not known for his grappling. Arroyo, 12 takedown attempts in 4 fights. He's gotten 5 of them. He's averaging 1.4 takedowns per 15 minutes. But we see that his opponents are attempting way more takedowns, and piss poor takedown attempts or defense here for Antonio Arroyo at 32%, 4.76 takedowns per 15 minutes allowed. So, the reason I'm picking Buckley here is I think he's going to throw way more volume. He's the way busier striker. Both of these guys hit hard, though, so I think volume could make the difference if this remains a striking battle. But the other thing is that if Buckley doesn't like how it's going on the feet, he can take down Arroyo. Arroyo not really known for his takedowns and his grappling, even though he's gotten 5 takedowns in 4 fights. He's only managed 10% control time with those 12 takedown attempts. So he's not really using it very well. And his defensive wrestling is so bad that I think if Buckley wants to win minutes and bank rounds using wrestling, which he has been training a lot of lately, that will be an open door for him to have a chance to win a decision here if he doesn't get the knockout, to bank some minutes and just lay on Antonio Arroyo, has absolutely no get-up game and is really pretty shitty off his back. So I'm going to pick Joaquin Buckley to win. But I'm going to actually pick him to win by decision, even though I think that this fight probably finishes inside the distance more times than it doesn't. Antonio Arroyo has never been knocked out, and I don't think Joaquin Buckley's submitting anybody. So I think the most likely path to Buckley winning this fight is with volume and with some grappling and top control. And if he mixes all that together, I could see him winning a decision here pretty easily. Antonio Arroyo is pretty one-dimensional, going to be looking to land one big strike. But if he does, I think he could get Joaquin Buckley out of there inside the distance, as Buckley has been knocked out in 3 of his 4 professional losses. So the pick is going to be Joaquin Buckley, and I'll say by decision, but I think he could also get it done inside the distance as well. And then we're going to move on to Nate Maness against Tony Gravely. Nate Maness is a big bantamweight, you guys. 5'10", 72-inch reach. And Gravely's a small bantamweight. Gravely's always fighting dudes that are bigger than him. He's only 5'5", 69-inch reach. Gravely way more experienced here than Nate Maness. We got 27 pro fights for Tony Gravely in a 6-year career, while we've got 14 pro fights for Maness in an 8-year career. So that means less than 2 pro fights per year for Nate Maness, while for Gravely, it's 4.5 fights a year. So Gravely, going to be the smaller guy here, but he's the way more experienced and the way busier fighter. And then he's also got twice as many UFC level fights at 4 compared to Maness's 2. If we look at the finish rates, Gravely winning 43% of the time by knockout, 14% of the time by sub. That's a 57% finish rate. While for Maness, it's 54% finish rate, 31% by knockout, 23% by sub. So I believe that's 3 wins by submission, 4 by knockout. And then in Maness's 1 loss, he was knocked out. And in Gravely's 5 of Gravely's 6 losses, he's been submitted. So if you add up the losses for these guys, in 7 losses, 6 of them have come inside the distance. So this is a very interesting spot for a potential fight doesn't go to decision or violence bet, if you will. So we've got Gravely looking better on the striking numbers here, and that's because He uses his grappling control in order to smother his opponents, and he kind of uses his defense that way. So he's landing 4.01 significant strikes a minute is Gravely, and he's absorbing 3.11, while Maness is almost getting doubled up as he lands 2.4 significant strikes a minute, but absorbs 4.63. A lot of power for Maness, though. We've got him landing a knockdown on 1.85% of the significant strikes that he lands. Both of these guys landing about 2/3 of a knockdown per 15 minutes. Gravely's got 2 knockdowns in 187 significant strikes landed, so he's got some power in his hands as well. And then if we look at the grappling numbers, we see Gravely has 35 takedown attempts in 4 fights. So this is a guy who's clearly got very good conditioning and uses that grappling heavy game plan in order to win minutes, bank rounds, and he'll do it over and over again, and he will keep going for the takedowns until he gets them. He has been submitted 5 of his 6 losses, but they're all by very good grapplers. So let's go into that real quick here, because I think it's important that we look at the kind of guys that have submitted Tony Gravely, and we understand that Nate Maness is not that kind of a fighter. Nate Maness is a very long, bantamweight with a lot of power in his hands. So I think Maness is going to definitely want to keep this at striking range, use his length, use his power, and use his boxing to win a stand-up decision here, while Gravely's going to go after that grappling and really kind of try to grind this out. So we see that Nate Maness has lost via a side kick to Taylor Lapalus. I believe that was to the body. It was a great shot. But we've got wins over Jesse Arnett, Kellen Van Camp, Johnny Munoz Jr., Luke Sanders, and Kyle Machado here. So we've got some pretty good wins, and then some over some 4-0 guys like Michael Ricketts and Cody Gully back here in 2015. Another 4-0 guy in Brandon Sandifor. So we've got some, good wins for Nate Maness. This dude is definitely no joke. And we saw in the Johnny Munoz Jr. fight that, he can keep people off of him. He defended 15 of 17 takedowns in that fight. But I think Gravely being a D1 wrestler and Johnny Munoz Jr. being more of a jiu-jitsu guy, that we may see Gravely have a little more success with the takedowns than Munoz did. But Munoz is probably the better submission grappler in comparison to Gravely. But if we go to Gravely's numbers here, we will see that these submission losses came to Patchy Mix, Manny Bermudez, Merab Dvalishvili didn't submit him, Ricky Bendejas, and Pat Sabatini way back in 2015. So these are all top-notch grapplers here. And Dvalishvili didn't even submit them. So, we don't really see Gravely getting submitted here by Maness. And Tony Gravely has never been knocked down in 145 significant strikes landed against him in the UFC. His takedown defense hasn't been good, though. So maybe if Maness does want to shoot a takedown, he can exploit that 53% takedown defense for Gravely. But I think that might be a little more of a function of the fact that Gravely doesn't mind being on the ground. But Brett Johns probably did work him over pretty good, and Brett Johns is an absolutely suffocating grappler. Gravely being pretty good on the feet as well leads me to believe that he's just got more ways to win this fight. I'm going to pick Tony Gravely. I'm going to pick him to win by grappling, takedowns, top control, and he'll win a grappling-based decision here is going to be the pick. And if we look at the odds on the Gravely fight, we'll see that he's a pretty good favorite here. Gravely minus 210, Maness plus 268, and we don't have any props on this fight either. Thank you. Best fight odds. So, yeah, the pick is going to be Tony Gravely by decision for that one. Christos, Giagos, Armen, Tsarukyan. You guys, Armen Tsarukyan is what? Minus 750, minus 800. This is not something we're just, minus 850 at this point. He's minus 850 and Giagos is plus 540. The problem with Giagos here is that we've seen some pretty bad conditioning out of Giagos in the past. Giagos' path to victory is grappling. He's attempted 53 takedowns in 9 fights. He's gotten 22 of them. He's out-controlled his opponents. Giagos has 34% to 18%. So Giagos does like to use his grappling in order to win minutes and bank rounds, but Armen Tsarukyan is just better than him at that. And the problem is that we've got a situation where Tsarukyan has way better conditioning, and in order to run that kind of a game plan, the game plan that Giagos has and the game plan that Tsarukyan has, you got one of these two guys actually having the gas tank in order to be able to correctly implement that game plan and use it over and over again to win. Tsarukyan's just built better than Giagos is to run that kind of game plan. He gets better as the fight goes on, while Giagos tends to gas as the fight goes on. Now, Giagos has taken a lot of short notice fights, so we could potentially see him bring more to the table this time. But I just think Tsarukyan's on a different level here. The line is where it is for a reason. So I'm picking Armen Tsarukyan. I'm going to pick him to win in the 3rd round. I know that the 3rd round prop on Tsarukyan is plus 900 on FanDuel and on DraftKings. That's a pretty good look here, in my opinion, because we have seen Giagos gas out. He's been finished in 63% of his losses. That's 5 of 8 losses. 4 of those have come by sub. And Tsarukyan has won 31% of the time by sub, 31% of the time by KO, and 38% of the time by decision. So he's definitely a guy that can finish people in a number of different ways. The line's where it is for a reason. His conditioning is better than Giagos. I think he wears him down with wrestling and ground and pound, and then gets a rear naked choke in the 3rd round. Let's book it. That's going to be an ass shaving. Let's call Armen Tsarukyan 3rd round prop plus 900. You guys book it. Your Uncle Weezy gave it to you here first. Moving on to the next fight. Ariane Lipski, my guy Clint's favorite fighter, going up against Mandy Bohm. Mandy Bohm, let's call her. Lipski going to be 5 years younger than Bohm here. We've got identical heights, and Bohm being 3 inches of reach advantage here. Hang on. So Bohm's got the reach advantage. Ariane Lipski, a very powerful Muay Thai striker. That is her base. Her grappling is terrible. Mandy Bohm, a kickboxing base prior to her coming to MMA. But what I've seen on the regional scene footage out of Bohm is that she's very well-rounded. When she gets the fight to the ground, she's mean there. She strikes. She uses the striking to advance position. She uses the advancing positions in order to set up submissions. She's levels ahead of Ariane Lipski on the ground, but when we look at the standing, we see Lipski does have great power. Lipski's landing a knockdown on 0.55% of the significant strikes that she's landing. So that's 1 knockdown and 181 significant strikes landed. But, we can see that Lipski's just absorbing way more than she lands. She's getting taken down all the time. So if Bohm doesn't like how it's going on the feet, she can get the fight to the ground here. While I don't see Lipski having that ability to get to do the same to Bohm. And then, we see that Lipski does have a 46% finish rate by knockout, 23% finish rate by sub. So that's a 69% finish rate. So that's pretty good. 58% finish rate by Bohm. A little more equal opportunity for Bohm there. Lipski definitely does use that power. But I just like what I saw from Bohm. She uses her length very well. She's got a way better jab than Lipski does. And I just think she's a little more technically sound everywhere. I think you're getting a little bit of a discount here on Bohm because it's her debut and because we've seen quite a bit of Lipski in the UFC. But from what I've seen of Lipski in the UFC, I'm just not impressed. You got that freak weird ass submission that she got with the knee bar against Luana Carolina. And then a win against Isabella de Padua, who we haven't seen since. And then, if you go back before that, these names, she got a win over the gigantic Mariana Moraes. She's got a win over Diana Belbita, a win over Sheila Gaff, and a win over Silvana Gomez Juarez. So she's definitely fought the better competition here. She's lost to Molly McCann. She's lost to Joanne Calderwood. She lost to Antonina Shevchenko on the ground. She got finished by Montana De La Rosa on the ground. And I don't think it'll be much different if Mandy Bohm gets her on the ground. Bohm does not have the kind of signature wins, though, that Lipsky does. We see the win against Greet Ekhoots, 5-3. Jane Wong, 3-0, and then an 0-1 fighter, a 2-3 fighter, a 3-1 fighter, a 0-0 fighter, a 0-0 fighter, and a 0-0 fighter. But she's getting wins via triangle, via a rear naked choke, and that she's also gotten finishes via punches. Win by a rear naked choke here in the third round. So she's definitely got more ways to finish. She does have a nice ground game. From what I saw of her ground control, she advances position, she lands good ground and pound, and she really knows what she's doing there, and she doesn't make mistakes. So I'm going to pick Mandy Bohm to win this fight. I actually have a 1-unit bet on her to win just on the money line. I got it at -105. I think it's still right there. I just think she's more well-rounded. I think some of these really pretty girls like Ariane Lipsky, they just get a little bit too much money bet on them because people like betting on the hot girls for some reason. But I prefer to bet on talent, and I see that this is a very close fight on the feet. Mandy Bohm's striking is right there with Ariane Lipsky's, in my opinion. The problem is once this goes to the ground, I think Bohm's going to be way better. So I'm picking Bohm to win here. But let's move on to the co-main event, which is Ion Cutelaba, the Hulk, going up against the Brown Bear, Devin Clark. The Hulk's 4 years younger, 1 inch taller, and he's a southpaw. He's got 6 more fights, does the Hulk. He's got 1 more year as a pro, but it's Devin Clark with the cage time advantage. Both of these guys really experienced in the UFC. 10 UFC fights for Cutelaba, 11 for Clark. We've got a 6-5 record for Clark. We got a 4-5-1 record for Cutelaba. 93% finish rate for Ion Cutelaba. 33% finish rate for Devin Brown Bear Clark. Now, Clark has been finished in 100% of his 5 losses, and Cutelaba has been finished in 4 of his 6 losses. So if we add up those 11 losses between these two guys, 9 of them have come inside the distance. Very interesting there. So this could be a great spot for a fight doesn't go to decision bet. If we look at the aggregate striking numbers, both of these guys are landing more significant strikes than they absorb. Ion lands 5 and absorbs 3.8. Devin lands 3.33 and absorbs 2.43. Devin far more experienced with his striking, far more accurate with his striking at 57.29% in comparison to only 40% for Cutelaba. Both of these guys striking defense right about the same place. The Chindex right around the same place, to steal a term from Monk there. And both of these guys showing power in their own right, but not a ton of it for the division. What's going to be interesting, and I think what's going to settle this fight, is going to be the grappling. Cutelaba, 33 takedown attempts in 10 fights. Clark, 56 takedown attempts in 11 fights. So both of these guys go to the wrestling. Both of them attempt more than 3 takedown attempts per fight, while for Clark, it's about 5 takedown attempts per fight. And Cutelaba has shown 78% takedown defense. He's been successful in defending 18 out of 23 takedown attempts against. And Devin Clark, pretty good takedown defense in his own right at 77%. Cutelaba outcontrols his opponents 15% to 14%. Clark outcontrols his opponents 38% to 23%. So I'm looking right here at the chat, and DFS by the numbers is saying that Cutelaba wins in round 1 was plus 290 on FanDuel. Not sure if it's still there, but that's crazy. Well, let's have a look see. Let's look and see if it's still there, because Kudalaba is so explosive early in fights that I like that bet. So let's go to the round betting and see what Kudalaba to win in round 1 is still plus 290. And I know that I've got some DraftKings analytics here, and I've got some of my money lines, and I have an aggregate first round line here. So for Ion Kudalaba, I have it at plus 224. So the plus 290 that you're getting on FanDuel is way out of whack with where it is everywhere else, because on the aggregate, it's only plus 224, which means everywhere else is probably about plus 180. So thanks for pointing that out, Brady. Plus 290 is a very good look, because Kudalaba is very explosive. And I bet if we were to go look at his record here, we can go to his fight log and see what percentage of those wins came in the first round of those 15 wins. So win round 1, win round 1, win round 1, win decision, win round 1, win round 1, win round 1 over the venerable Yuri Gorbenko, win round 1, win round 1, win round 1, win round 1, and then the other wins, they don't even list what round they're in, but basically all of the wins that are listed as happening in a round, they all happened in round 1, except for the Jonathan Wilson win, which was a unanimous decision win. So yeah, that prop on FanDuel plus 290, brought to you by DFS by the Numbers, everybody's favorite YouTube MMA capper. Give it up for him in the chat, giving us gold here in just the tip. That is a really nice bet. I might be jumping on that one after I get out of here with you guys, because this guy is very explosive. We've seen he does his best work in the first round, and we have seen that Devin Clark has been finished in quite a bit of his losses, 100% of them. So that is a great look. Both of these guys land more strikes than they absorb. Clark's got the better accuracy. Clark is the more active wrestler, and Clark has the better gas tank in order to be able to keep up that kind of a pace for the entire fight. So I like Kudalaba to get this done in round 1, but if he doesn't, I think that Devin Clark is going to wear on him and make this a very close fight. I think this could be a great spot for a draw bet, because I could see Kudalaba winning a 10-8 in round 1, and then Devin Clark using wrestling, cage control, and ground control to grind out rounds 2 and 3. This could be a great spot for a draw bet. Might be one of the cheekiest bets of the week for me. I might get in there on that. But if we look at the strength of schedule metric here, because we've got both of these guys with a lot of fights, we see Kudalaba with a little better of a ratio here at 1.55 to Clark's 1.42, and slightly more experienced fighters at 7.9 fights to 6.82. Clark's wins, though, are a little bit better in terms of win-loss record. And then both of these guys are losing to studs, although Kudalaba's losses are just a little bit better. So I would give Kudalaba the overall strength of schedule advantage, although Clark's wins just a little bit better than Ion's. Boy, it's a hard fight to call, but I am going to pick Kudalaba to win. I think he's more explosive. I think he'll do the things in the cage that are the more eye-catching. I could see this ending in a draw, but I could also see Devin Clark winning a greasy decision, or Kudalaba winning by a first-round knockout. Very exciting fight. I'm going to pick Ion Kudalaba here. It shouldn't be much of a surprise, seeing as the line has Kudalaba as a minus 142 favorite to Clark's plus 116. But yeah, Kudalaba to win in round 1 at plus 290, and that is a fantastic look there. And will the fight go the distance? They are saying no is a minus 215. So you could get plus 168 if this fight does make it all the way to the scorecards. That would be interesting. That's a pretty good look if you think that Devin Clark can control a lot of this fight with his wrestling. So We are going to get to the main event here. We've got 24 of you guys still hanging out with me here, and it's almost midnight, so I thank each and every one of you. The main event, Ryan Spann versus Anthony Smith. I did a main event breakdown on DFS by the Numbers channel earlier this week. You can go check out. And I also did a main event statistical deep dive with my man Monk on Monk's channel that you can also check out. We did it about the middle of last week. So check out those for an in-depth look into this fight. But let's get into the numbers here. Ryan Spann, 3 years younger, 1 inch taller, and a 3-inch reach advantage. He definitely has the measurables advantage. He's going to be the bigger dude here. Anthony Smith, more experience, 51 professional fights in comparison to Spann's 25. So way more experience, but it's not like Spann is inexperienced by any stretch of the imagination here. Twice as many UFC level fights for Anthony Smith, but both of these guys have fought a little under a third of their careers at the UFC level. Both of these guys, ridiculously good finishers. 91% finish rate for Anthony Smith. 32 out of his 35 wins have come inside the distance. For Ryan Spann, it's 94%. That is 18 out of 19 wins coming inside the distance. That is 50, or I think it's 17, actually. It's 17 out of 19. So 17 and 32 is 49 out of 54 wins have come inside the distance. So these guys' combined finishing rate in 54 wins is over 90%. And then if we look at the 22 losses, we've got 13 of them coming inside the distance for Anthony Smith and 4 of them coming inside the distance for Ryan Spann. So that is 17 of 22, which means that just under 80% of these guys' combined losses have come inside the distance. And we will see that the fight doesn't go to decision. And this is a 5-round fight, mind you. The fight doesn't go prop. One of my favorite bets of the week is minus 280. So it was minus 250 earlier in the week. We talked about it on Stat Diggers. We talked about it on the main event breakdowns on both Monk's channel and DFS by the Numbers channel. Hopefully you got on that bet. But that is a great bet here, as I do not see this fight getting to the scorecards. Both of these guys are too elite of finishers. Anthony Smith is getting hit a lot more than he hits his opponents. He lands 3 significant strikes a minute, absorbs 4.5, while Spann lands 3.55 and absorbs 3.45. Both of these guys striking accuracy in the mid-40s. Spann striking defense a little bit better than Smith's at 47% compared to 42. Both of these guys getting knocked down about 0.34 times per 15 minutes, but Ryan Spann is landing a knockdown on over 3% of the significant strikes that he lands. Stupid power, while Smitty's got a good amount of power in his own right at 0.93%. Anthony Smith's takedown defense is absolutely horrible, so I can see Spann winning minutes and banking rounds if he chooses to go to the wrestling here, as Smith basically provides no resistance to takedowns. Smith is getting out-controlled by his opponents at a 4.5-to-1 ratio, as he gets controlled 36.5% of the time, but only controls his opponents 8.29% of the time. While Spann, even though his opponents attempt more takedowns than he does, he's out-controlling his opponents at almost a 2-to-1 ratio. So Spann has been very economical with his wrestling and has been good enough with his takedown defense and get-up game to not lose minutes on the ground like Anthony Smith does. But the big difference here between these two guys is the strength of schedule. Anthony Smith has fought the far tougher brand of competition over his career, and he is extremely tough in his own right. You got to almost kill him to get him out of there. His opponents, when he does lose, they do get him out of there, but it's really difficult to do. The guy is incredibly tough. They call him Lionheart for a reason. So I do see it's either Spann early or it's Smith late, because we haven't seen good conditioning out of Ryan Spann in the past. And this is a 5-round fight. And if you don't get Anthony Smith out of there, sometimes he finds a way to turn that fight on a dime and get a quick win the second you make a mistake or the second you get tired. And Anthony Smith is training up at up at altitude up there in Factory X. So he does have very good conditioning, and his kickboxing has gotten a little bit better. We saw it take the next step against Jimmy Crute. Unfortunately, Jimmy Crute didn't fight the smart game plan that he needed to in order to bank the minutes and win the rounds that he should have easily won there. It wasn't until Crute was on one leg that he decided to shoot takedowns, and even then, he was 2 of 2 on takedowns. So I'm worried about Anthony Smith's takedown defense. I'm worried about his ability to be able to get back up if Spann does take him down. And I'm worried about Anthony Smith's lack of urgency on the ground in either to try to get a submission or to try to get back up. But since it's a 5-round fight, I would be way more likely to bet Spann here if this was a 3-round fight, because I could see him having that wrestling heavy game plan for 3 rounds and being successful with it. But for 5 rounds against a guy as tough as Smith, if he doesn't get him out of there, I could see Smith finding a way to finish him in the 4th or 5th round. This is an awfully difficult fight to call. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to pick Anthony Smith here, but I think the value is on Ryan Spann at plus money. I cannot bet Anthony Smith at minus money, especially where he's at right now, which is about minus 176. It's just too much juice. It's too much juice for a guy who, as Brady put it earlier, his game plan is to get the shit beaten out of him for 2.5 rounds and then catch somebody in a triangle. You just can't bet on somebody like that as a favorite. Landing 3 significant strikes a minute, absorbing 4.5, gets 8% control time, gives up 37% control time, loses fights until he wins them. So I think the value is on Spann here at plus money. I love the fight doesn't go to decision as a parlay piece. I'll even give you a greasy 4-leg parlay like I usually do for my guy Hammer and Hog in here. Let's say the greasy 4-leg parlay this week will be Smith Spann fight doesn't go to decision, and then we're going to throw Tsarukyan in there. We're going to throw Montel Jackson in there, and we're going to throw Blanchfield in there. So let's see where that gets us. So we'll say the fight doesn't go the distance, minus 280. Let's see if that comes up in the bet slip. There's that. Okay. And then we'll go to the money lines, and we'll see if we can get plus money on this thing, although I doubt it. All right. Tsarukyan, minus 850. And then... come on. And then Blanchfield minus 325 and Montel minus 590 gives us plus 131. That'll be the 4-leg parlay, you guys. Spann Smith fight doesn't go the distance. Tsarukyan money line, Jackson money line, and then the Blanchfield money line. That is your greasy 4-leg parlay for the week. The pick for the main event is going to be Anthony Smith by 4th round submission. That's going to be my pick for the main event. Book it. We made it through 15 fights, an hour and 32 minutes. 26 of you guys still with me, and I know why you're still with me. It's because we have one more piece of business to get to this evening before we all get to go to bed. And you guys know what that is. So start typing in the chat. Who's it going to be this week? Who is going to shave ass this week? Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Who's going to get the job done? Last week, I gave you guys an underdog. I could have picked any of those. I could have said Jack Shore. I could have just said Jack Shore's going to win, walked away, and made it look like I got one right. Well, I didn't. I gave you guys an underdog in Molly McCann, and she did it. She got the job done. 2 out of 3 times on just the tip, I've gotten the ass shaving of the week right. Alessio Di Chirico, the only person to let me down thus far. So we got to find one more, you guys. Oh, my God. You prick. You prick, DFS by the numbers. How dare you get in my head? Because this week it's Erin Blanchfield, you guys. Erin Blanchfield. I'm not going with Montel Jackson. It's too easy. Taking that fighting on short notice against JP Bays. JP Bays on short notice with bad conditioning. Ugh, don't like it, man. Not against Montel. That'll be bad, but it's too easy. Giagos, yeah, he's going to get his ass shaved against Tsarukyan, but you guys already knew that. This Erin Blanchfield, she's new to the UFC, but she's not new to fighting UFC level competition. Wins over Kay Hansen. I thought she beat Tracy Cortez. Head kick knockout over Victoria Leonardo. A dominant from pillar to post victory over Brogan Sanchez. This girl can fight. And Alpar's wrestling is her best tool, but that's going to take the fight right to where Blanchfield is the most comfortable. She's going to put Alpar in several bad situations. We've seen Alpar get her back taken. She's not great on the mat unless she has the top position. And if Tracy Cortez couldn't take down Blanchfield and dominate her for large swaths of the fight, I don't see how Alpar is going to do it. And now Alpar's got to cut down to 125 for this fight when she's been fighting up at 135. You guys, the ass shaving of the week this week is going to be the newbie, Erin Blanchfield, making a splash. She's going to shave the ass of Sarah Too Sweet Alpar. There it is, you guys. Just the tip. Tuesday night, 15 fights we got through. We got Erin Blanchfield as our ass shaving of the week. It's time for me to finish this beverage and go to bed, and to thank each and every one of you for spending your Tuesday night with your Uncle Weezy. 26 you guys still in here. I have to thank each and every one of you. God bless you all. I will be back tomorrow with at least one more Balls Deep breakdown, but probably two more. I'm going to go watch some tape. I'm going to try to figure out some more angles for you guys because I don't have enough bets down for this week. We got to get some more down. I'm going to do some more work. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for helping me get above 500 subscribers. If you want the stats that you've been seeing in this video for the last hour and a half, look in the description of the video. I got the link to Stat Diggers in there for Pub Sports Radio. I've got the link to the Pub Sports Radio DraftKings show that we did earlier today with DFS by the numbers, AJ MMA betting, and sparring with reality betting Luke. Check that out. And all these stats are available for free. Hey, like Z says, it's us against the bookies. I'm trying to help you guys out by giving you the work that I do to get all these stats together. Thank you for hanging out. I'm getting out of here, you guys. You guys have a great night. Sleep well. Talk to you guys tomorrow on Balls Deep Breakdown.